2021 was the year Canadians came face to face with the brutal truth about residential schools.
It was also a year in which Canadians of all cultures and backgrounds were forced to deal with new forms of hatred growing in our country.
2021 also saw an unrelenting pandemic combined with a sharp increase to the cost of everyday items, which left Canadians understandably asking, what's next?
Tonight, our teams from OMNI News, CityNews and Breakfast Television take your concerns to the Prime Minister for a special year-end interview.
I'm Tammie Sutherland from Breakfast Television, and joining me on the panel tonight is Mona Awwad from the OMNI Arabic team and Cormac Mac Sweeney and Nigel Newlove from the CityNews Ottawa Bureau. Let's start with Nigel and the issue that has shocked and horrified Canadians this year, residential schools.
Mr. Prime Minister, thanks for joining us today. Since day one, you've made reconciliation a top priority. But on the first day of National Truth and Reconciliation, when thousands were mourning the discovery of unmarked graves across the country, you took a trip to Tofino. We know you've apologized, we know you're sorry, but what were you thinking when you made that decision?
We actually held an event the night before on Parliament Hill with the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation that raised the flag of reconciliation for the first time on Parliament Hill. So there were ceremonies around that. But yeah, I should have gone to Kamloops that day, and I regret it, which is why I was glad to be there a few weeks later to meet with the community, to talk about the path we need to continue to walk together.
What kind of damage do you think that did to reconciliation efforts and your image as a sincere partner in reconciliation?
I think Canadians know that reconciliation is not about any one act. It's about millions of acts that all of us have to do. Yes, the government needs to be a key part of that, and we have been, but reconciliation is more than just government to people. It's about how Canadians engage with the truth of our history, the sorrow and the trauma that continues from generations of a broken relationship. There's a lot of things we all have to do to improve and to walk that path of reconciliation, and I'm focused on doing it with everyone.
Thank you, Nigel. Prime Minister, next month, Canadians will mark the 5th anniversary of the Quebec City mosque attack. Earlier this year, your government designated January 29th as a national day of commemoration for the victims of the attack and to promote action against Islamophobia. Then in June, we saw the deadly attack on the Afzal family in London, Ontario, which police say was motivated by anti-Muslim hate. Now, beyond these incidents, we saw the case of the Quebec teacher who was removed from her classroom for wearing the hijab, and the school board confirmed that the step was taken because of Bill 21, which bans certain public servants from wearing religious symbols on the job in the province. So one of that teacher's grade 3 students wrote, and I quote, "It's not fair that you can't teach. I actually think your hijab is awesome." Mr. Trudeau, a grade 3 student believes that this is wrong. Why is it so hard for you to take action on this issue?
Well, I've said from the very beginning how much I disagree with Bill 21. I don't think in a free society anyone should ever have to choose between their religion and their job. And that's part of why we've taken such action against Islamophobia, why we continue to fight intolerance every step of the way. But in the case of a provincial law passed by a provincial legislature, the way it works is that people in that province, family members, community members, are taking that government to court, are going through the court process to defend their rights. And as a federal government, we're watching very carefully as that goes forward, and we have not ruled out intervening at a later date to make sure that this moves forward and dealt with properly. But I've been very clear, this is not something that we should have in a free country like Canada.
So would you be able to specify when you would be acting on this, and while you wait, what would your message be to the teacher who was removed and to the students who lost their teachers?
Well, first of all, for Fatima, who's a teacher who is doing what she loves, kids love her for doing it, to have to see that in a country like Canada that prides itself on its freedom, on its openness, to be told, no, because your religion, you don't get to do the job you want, is just wrong. That shouldn't happen in Canada. But a provincial government passed a law, and the important thing for me is that Quebecers themselves are fighting that law in court, and that's going through. As it moves forward, there may be a moment for the federal government to intervene, and that's fine. But I think it is right and proper and best that Quebecers themselves be standing up to say, no, this isn't right in our community, this isn't right in our country to have this happen.
So you're saying you're not ruling out the possibility of intervening. If it's not this incident, what would it take for you to take action?
This incident should never have happened. Nobody should ever lose their job or not be able to do the job they want because of their religion. Well, certainly not in a country like Canada. That's just wrong. And that's what we have been standing up for right across the country. In this process, the process is working. Quebecers are challenging this law. We've seen the community of Chelsea rally together around this teacher in this school that are being subject to this thing that doesn't make sense, including for Quebecers. I mean, let me say, Quebecers are proud of the gender equality, the freedom of expression, and indeed the freedom of religion that comes with being in a free society. And I think a lot of people in Quebec right now are realizing, oh, we didn't realize this would mean someone has to lose their job because of her religion. You know, I am very optimistic on Quebecers understanding that in a free society, you shouldn't be telling people what to wear or not wear or punishing them for their religion.
What would it take for the federal government to intervene?
Well, we have said we have not ruled out intervening at the right moment, but right now, the court process is underway. The justice system, our democracy is working. Citizens themselves are challenging a law brought in by a level of government that they voted for. It's a provincial law. It's being challenged directly in the court system the way it works.
Tammie?
Thanks, Mona. Well, Prime Minister, your election platform mentioned a strategy on combating hate. So, quote, to present a national action plan on combating hate by 2022 as part of a renewed anti-racism strategy. It will include recommendations from the anti-Semitism and Islamophobia summits and specific action on combating hate crimes in Canada, including possible amendments to the criminal code, training and tools for public safety agencies, and investments to support digital literacy and prevent radicalization to violence. End quote. Now, we have agreed to meet here in this space. It is called Shoot for Peace in downtown Toronto, an organization that aims at getting and introducing at-risk youth to photography, and again, in certain communities where these youth, a lot of them, are racialized. We're days away from 2022, and people are living with discrimination every day, including the kids who come here to this area and to this organization. So where is this plan as 2022 approaches?
We're continuing to work on a lot of initiatives, but to take this space, for example, we just helped fund this space. A few days ago, they received more funding from the federal government through a Black community initiative program that we put forward. Over the past years, whether it's been with the Anti-Racism Secretariat, whether it's been through initiatives for Black-led community organizations, or even the Black Entrepreneur Strategy, initiatives investing in community organizations to help kids in challenging neighborhoods. We have made a lot of investments and taken a lot of concrete action. But as you point out, there's more to do. We need to do more on an anti-racism strategy. We need to do more on funding, and we're working very much on doing that.
Okay, and your platform did mention by 2022. So again, with just days away from the new year, are you going to have that plan in hand before the end of the new year?
Like I said, we have many different issues. We're putting forward the programs that are supporting, and we are going to move forward on an anti-racism strategy. I'm not, the initiatives we're taking, whether it's this one that we're working on to get right, because we recognize online harms, we recognize the challenges on families that the violence has resulted in, the tragedies. We need to do more, and we're on it.
Okay, and what do you say then to those people who are living through discrimination every day? It's their reality on a daily basis.
I say that it shouldn't happen in Canada, that too many Canadians are facing discrimination as their daily reality, and that's why we've stepped up on anti-racism strategies, on fighting systemic discrimination, on investing in community leaders and community programs, on supporting at-risk youth, on combating gun violence, on moving forward on eliminating mandatory minimums, on a number of crimes to counter the overrepresentation of certain populations violations in the justice system. There's not any one thing we can do that's going to fix it. There are a whole lot of things we're doing under the leadership of amazing people like Marcy Ian, who's our Minister for Youth and Women and Gender Equality as well.
Now, you mentioned mandatory minimums, and of course there is a bill that has been reintroduced in the new session of Parliament to scrap mandatory minimum sentences for minor drug offences and minor gun offences as well. Now, medical officers of health, we have national medical associations, even the Association of Chiefs of Police have all called for the decriminalization of drugs in Canada. So if medical experts and law enforcement officials are agreeing on this approach, why aren't you? Why aren't you taking that action?
Well, one of the things that everyone has agreed on is there is no one solution to counter either the opioid epidemic or the tragedies that so many families are facing. One of the things that we have done that turned around from the previous government was invest a lot more in safe supply and safe consumption sites, in making sure that there's access to safe supply so that people can be supported. We've also invested a lot in frontline workers, in provincial health systems. We've been there to combat the opioid epidemic, and as I've said, we're willing to work with provinces who want to move forward on different steps. We're having good conversations with British Columbia about something they want to do there. We are open to taking more steps, but the idea that there is one solution that's going to suddenly fix everything is simply not there. There's so many things we have to continue to do, and we're going to do lots of different things on that.
Now, you listened to experts when it came to the pandemic. You listened to them immediately. So why not listen to experts in this field?
But we are, and one of the first things they say is restore safe supply, which we've done. Interdict the flow of drugs into Canada as much as possible, which we've taken measures on. Start investing more in frontline workers. Make sure that there's naloxone available. Work on community organizations and programs. These are all things we've done. We've also ensured a better supply of artificial opiates. Those are things that are there. There are further steps to take, and we are working with jurisdictions and looking at them. So it is all part of a process that we're part of to try and heal Canadians from the challenges they're facing.
But they're specifically calling for decriminalizing drugs.
Yes, they are. And we are looking at where to do that, if to do that, how to do that in partnership with the provinces. It's not going to be the federal government doing something without making sure that there are the supports on the ground in municipalities, in the provinces. British Columbia is looking at that, talking with that, and we are working with them to see how we can move forward with them in the right way.
Cormac.
This year, we saw the largest vaccination efforts in Canadian history. But as we come to a close here in 2021, we're seeing booster campaigns and COVID cases surging once more. Now, there are some epidemiologists in the United States who say that in 2022, they expect the pandemic stage of COVID to end and an endemic stage to kick in, where it's less severe and becomes more common like the flu. So I'll ask you what a lot of Canadians are wondering as this year comes to a close. When will this end? Do you believe that the pandemic stage of COVID will end in 2022?
My responsibility is to make sure that as a government and as a country, we have Canadians' backs. We're there to support them, whatever stages the pandemic goes through. I mean, and we've seen over this past year, Canadians stepped up in a huge way to get vaccinated. Kids are getting vaccinated now. My son, 7 years old, just got vaccinated last week. We are moving forward in the right way to keep people safe. But at the same time, we're seeing this new variant. We're seeing cases spike as we approach the holidays. We're going to have to be attentive and react and act in ways that keep people safe right now. I'm not going to venture on any predictions of what the situation could like 6 months from now. We have experts making predictions. What I'm focused on is making sure that now and in the weeks and months to come, we both have enough vaccines and boosters for everyone, that we have the right measures in place, that we're working with provinces to support people who have to go through shutdowns, who are facing challenges. Our job is to support Canadians throughout. I know people want this to be over. God, I want this to be over too. We're doing everything we can to make sure that Canadians can get through this.
And on that, the CRB, one of the biggest benefits that Canadians relied on through the pandemic, ended this fall. We're seeing COVID cases surge again. We have the possibility of a fifth wave this winter. The finance minister has said that she had hoped the latest, more targeted measures that tend to help certain industries may be the last of the benefits. If we see a big fifth wave during this winter, would you be open to bringing back more benefits if we're back into lockdowns and massive surges in cases?
I made a simple promise that we would have Canadians' backs as long as it took, as much as it took. That's what we've been doing. That's what we'll continue to do. If we need to bring back more supports, we will. We've actually got a bill before the House right now to make sure that there are lockdown supports as people have to face difficult decisions, so that there is support for people if municipalities or regions have to bring in more lockdowns, which nobody wants, but might happen. The federal government is ready to support people through this, because we know that supporting people with economic supports to get through this is the best thing, not just for the health outcomes, it's also the best thing to make sure that our economy comes back as quick as possible and people get through this with as little economic pain as possible.
Now, throughout the year, this nation has become a bit fractured. You've got vaccinated versus anti-vaxxers, people who support lockdowns to those who feel like we should be opening up again. There's a lot of division in Canada. Going back to the election, do you think that you added, as division was burning in Canada, you threw fuel on the fire by calling an election and shining a light on those divisions?
You know, Cormac, I actually disagree with that. I think one of the things we saw through this pandemic is just how Canadians pulled together. How much people are there for each other, not just our frontline workers who were extraordinary, but neighbors helping neighbors, young people helping their elders, people focused on being there for each other. And the proof is the fact that we have one of the highest double vaccination rates of any country in the world right now. Yes, there's some people who have chosen not to believe in science and who are putting others at risk, but they are a small minority. The vast majority of Canadians made it through this pandemic by doing the right thing and being there for each other. And that's one of the reasons why our pandemic wasn't, for all the tragedies we had, it wasn't as bad as many other places where people weren't as ready to be there for each other, weren't ready to set aside their differences and work together. And Canadians can be very proud of that.
During the election, you had rocks thrown at you, journalists harassed, even days from before this interview. There are still divisions. It's very heated and people are still angry. How can you say that it's everybody coming together and it's a small group when we're still seeing the same issues that we had earlier?
Well over 80% of Canadians are fully vaccinated right now. Canadians have been doing the right thing. Yes, there are people who don't choose not to believe in science or who are making their own decisions and putting others at risk, but the vast majority of Canadians have shown that when we pull together, we can do anything. And getting through this pandemic better than so many other places is not a result of the government, although governments of all stripes did good things. It is Canadians choosing to be there for each other, and that's something we should all be proud of.
So on top of that pandemic, families have been watching the cost of food skyrocket. Canada's latest food price report predicts an average family of four will pay almost $1,000 more for food in 2022. And it's forcing many to make difficult choices as they struggle to pay rent and feed the family. Some are still dealing with employment issues. We already know about your efforts to reduce childcare costs and to deal with housing. But what are you doing to help families struggling to put food on the table and pay rent?
Well, first of all, the most important thing right now for the economy, for families, is to end this pandemic as quickly as possible, which is why our investments in vaccines, in boosters, in pediatric vaccines, getting kids vaccinated, supporting businesses that are hard hit so people can stay safe and get through this. That's the first and foremost thing we need to do to support families. Beyond that, we're increasing the CCB to the cost of living so families get more money every month to support their kids. We're making the kinds of investments, as you said, in childcare, in housing. Childcare. Almost every region of the country right now has a childcare deal that is going to start reducing fees in half next year and bring it down to $10 a day within 5 years. Only Ontario is still not agreeing to sign the deal. We are very hopeful that families in Ontario will get $10 a day childcare very soon. We're continuing to work on that. We're also working to grow the economy. We're also working to fix some of the supply chain issues that COVID has disrupted massively in the global economy that's leading to a lot of inflation. Part of our promise to have people's backs is to be there with the rising costs of living, and that's what we're doing as well.
Now, if you look at Quebec, it's offering low-income citizens a cost of living allowance of up to $400 a month. Why can't the federal government adopt a similar plan?
Well, I think what we've seen is provinces are able to do that as well, and I think every province should be looking to do their part. The federal government has certainly stepped up through this pandemic. The federal government spent $8 of every $10 invested in supporting Canadians through this pandemic. We have been there, we will continue to be there, but it is going to be a team effort. Provinces have to step up, the federal government will continue to step up. We need to make sure we're supporting people, particularly the most vulnerable, through this difficult winter.
Mona?
Thanks, Nigel. So this year we finally saw the ordeal of the two Michaels come to an end with their release in September, but the relationship with China is still tense. Your government announced a diplomatic boycott to the Olympics in China, and the Chinese ambassador has warned unless Canada starts creating conditions for improving the relationship, there will be consequences. How do you respond to these threats?
Well, we've been very, very clear. That the human rights abuses by China, that the coercive diplomacy that had its perfect example and most disruptive example in the arrest of the two Michaels was unacceptable. And one of the things we did as a country was we didn't just go it alone. We leaned on neighbors, partners, allies around the world who also, in every meeting with the Chinese government, brought up the fact that those two Canadians who are arbitrarily detained should be sent home. And what we've seen around the world is like-minded countries coming together to say, this is not okay, and this isn't the way the world works, and putting pressure on the Chinese government to understand the rule of law, to respect the rule of law, and to abide by international norms. That's not something any country can do alone, but it is certainly something that all of us working together can demonstrate our unity, and that's what Canada's been focused on.
Do you fear for the safety of our athletes in the upcoming Beijing Olympics, given what happened to the two Michaels and also the diplomatic boycott?
I think, first of all, our athletes need to be focused on one thing and one thing only, which is representing Canada with all the extraordinary skill and ability they have, and we will be cheering them on massively. We will, of course, make sure that they are kept safe while they go there. That's something that's going to be in the mind of every country around the world as they send their kids and athletes to China. But we know that everyone is going to be working very hard to keep them safe and make sure that the Olympic Games are a resounding success, which, quite frankly, is something that obviously China wants as well.
So going back to the two Michaels, can you take us behind the scenes on the moment that you learned of their release?
Well, one of those moments I will never forget was standing on the tarmac in Calgary when they landed after almost 3 years of imprisonment. Being able to welcome them back to Canada, and to know that we were able to welcome them back to Canada because we had stood up for our values, because we had stood up for the rule of law, that we didn't bend in our principles, and we said, no, we're a country of the rule of law. We fulfill our extradition treaties with our allies, and we make sure we're standing up for Canadian citizens. And I think it was a moment where all Canadians who'd been so worried and so thinking about these two Canadians arbitrarily detained, we're really proud that we got to stand up for who we are as a country and get these Michaels home.
Thanks, Mona. Well, Mr. Trudeau, this year Canada has dealt with everything from excessive heat, wildfires, record flooding as well. The impact of climate change, of course, is nothing new at all. And your platform during the election had promised that there would be climate infrastructure changes that would be brought to certain at-risk communities in order to better prepare them for what is coming up in the future. So my question is, when can we expect shovels on in the ground when it comes to making those changes so that we do not see a repeat of what's happened
in BC, some of the damage and disaster that we have seen this year?
First of all, we've been investing in climate resilient infrastructure for the past many years, whether it's floodplain issues in Calgary, whether it's dealing with the challenges of wildfires in BC. We have been making these investments because we are a government that recognizes that climate change is real and requires us to act to support Canadians. Young people are in the streets regularly saying we need to do more to protect their future, and that's exactly what we've been doing as a country. We brought in a broad-based price on pollution that's actually one of the world-leading prices on pollution that we're working on convincing the world to adopt following Glasgow. We're moving forward on investing in more resilient infrastructure and adaptation because the tragedies and the challenges going through in BC right now are a taste of what is to come in the coming years as the impacts of climate change and extreme weather events get worse. As a government, we know we need to do even more. That's why we put forward the most ambitious plan to fight climate change of any of the parties, including the Green Party or the NDP in the last election, and why we're willing to go even further, even faster.
Will shovels be in the ground by the spring, let's say, on some of that adaptation?
Yes, absolutely. We're funding things right now, and we're going to continue to work to make sure that we're keeping communities safe.
Now, there is growing frustration in the West with people worried about their jobs, not just because of the pandemic, but also because of some environmental policies, including the cap on oil and gas emissions and a move to net zero as well. You've promised a just transition plan for the industry, but where is that plan at this point? Because those jobs are not popping up in areas like Alberta that would be hardest hit by going net zero and some of these environmental policies.
Actually, a lot of people would be surprised to learn that some of the best and greatest investments in renewables, in energy transformation, in decarbonizing our energy mix are being done in Alberta right now. Yes, we need to transform our energy mix and reduce our reliance on oil and gas, and that's why we're bringing in a cap on oil sands emissions and reducing them towards net zero. But we need to do it in a way that doesn't just help people in that industry along, but actually relies on the workers and scientists and people who've been at the heart of the energy industry that has been innovative and creating wealth for Canada for decades to be part of the future we're building. And that's where our investments in supporting those communities, supporting those workers, moving forward into an energy transformation is something that we're doing hand in hand with communities in Alberta and across the country. Because yes, we have to act to fight climate change, but yes, part of that is building a better future with good jobs for people right across the country.
Okay, Cormac.
And we're on to the last question, so I'll just ask you, over the last year, aside from the first day of Truth and Reconciliation, what's the one mistake that you or your government made that you would like to go back and change in 2021?
I think, when you look at the impact that this year has had, I think all of us can look back and say, I wish I'd done this differently, I wish I'd done that differently. But the focus we had throughout this year was doing everything we could to support Canadians. And we were there for that. And as various experts will say, oh, we could have done this better, we could have done that better. Absolutely. And we'll keep learning from that. But that core promise we made to support Canadians through this devastating, historic pandemic, we stuck to. And I think that's something that people should be proud of as a country, that we got through this despite all the losses and all the heartbreak in a way that is positioning us to continue to be the country that we love, that has strong values, that is there for each other and optimistic about the future.
I'd like to follow up, but we're out of time, so thank you very much for your time today, Prime Minister.
Thank you, everyone. Pleasure.